Well,
Until then, until I have that information, I'm not going to jump on board with that.
in fairness too, this is just a better time of the year if you are going to move on from the manager because them doing it right at the end of the Winter World Cup meant that a lot of teams were in mid-season. So if you're finding a manager who's available at that time, it's probably because they were not doing a very good job and got fired. Nobody's leaving mid-season to like just go be a free agent manager. But if you do it now in the summer, right after the season's finished, or like, relatively within the end of the season, you're going to find good managers who are available because they've just moved on from their last team. Maybe they're looking for something new or whatever. You're not only just going to get people who are available because they got fired because they were doing a terrible job at their last team. So I think the timing of it this time around is a bit better. So I'm hoping, like you were saying, they'll have more options in the boardroom this time rather than just having to settle with something.
Now, that is a great segue to the next section. So, there are rumors are out there that a bunch of people are already in, actually, it's not a rumor. It was mentioned already that the search for a coach is underway, which mean and they put out this whole list, right? Jurgen Klopp's on there, Garrett Southgate's on there, Thierry Henry's on there, Bob Bradley's still on there. So there are really, I think, two main options of who can take over. Bruce Arena finally comes back from the dead and takes over again, or USMNT does the funniest thing and Gregg Berhalter round 3 is underway as like in a week.
There's no way.
Bro, they fired him just to appease the Twitter warriors, just to bring him back. I think the world would burn down.
That would be, oh my God, that would be an absolute nightmare.
All right, well, let's do this then. Who do you want? Who's realistic? And who do you want is your long shot? Who do you want as like a realistic pick? And who do you think they're going to get? We'll do all three.
Ooh, who do I want? You know who I want. We only support one manager on this podcast, and that's Wilfred Nancy to the USMNT. That is absolutely wholeheartedly who I want. I know he's an MLS manager, but I truly believe in everything in my body that he can get the best out of a group playing internationally. What I don't want, and this is segueing into my what I think is the most likely, is that they end up with someone like Steve Cherundolo, who I think is a better manager than Gregg. I want to just fully say that for any LAFC fans that are listening. 100% he's a better manager than Gregg. He's already proven that. But I feel like if we bring in Cherundolo, we're getting just a slightly better version of Gregg. I think it's a defense first coach again who only has MLS coaching experience. Actually, well, he was, I think Justin was saying he had some assistant coaching experience with Hanover. But in terms of being a head coach, and I don't believe I'm missing anything, but I think he's only been a head coach in the US. Um, so I just don't know how much that's going to help the team transition away from what Gregg was bringing to the table into something where they're more used to playing at the club level, where they're seemingly doing better than they are at the national team level. And then Dream one, I mean, Wilfred Nancy kind of also falls on that. Like he is my preference, and I think it's unlikely, so he kind of falls into the dream category. But for the sake of picking somebody different, I'll go with, and this is a tentative one because I'd want to look into his more recent numbers because I don't know what he's been doing much as of late. But Patrick Vieira, I kind of like as a shout for the team. I think it's a bit of a long shot. Obviously, he has experience coaching in the US, so I'm sure he's made some connections here. So it may not be like a super long shot, but he did a really good job when he was here with NYCFC. And I know he has plenty of coaching experience in Europe so far. So I think that combined can translate well bringing into the national team. So I definitely want to go down the European international route. I don't want to repeat of bringing in another MLS manager. We've been doing that for forever. I feel like I'd like to see something different. I know some other people feel the same way. So those are my three.
think you're out of your mind calling Steve Cherundol's LAFC a defense first team.
They're
But
one of the best defensive teams in the league.
yeah, and they score a ridiculous amount of goals. What do you mean?
I mean, yeah, I mean, out of the
Yeah, that's
top
what I
five
thought.
teams in the West, they've scored the least. But I guess in fairness, they have played a little bit less games than the others. It's not that they don't score. I don't want to sorry. I feel like when I said defense first, it made it sound like they don't score, but I feel like he was a defender and his team is really strong at defending. I feel like that's the first priority. It's not that he doesn't have a good attacking team, but I feel like it's defense first. Like LAFC before he took over was high flying, tons of goal scoring, defense second. And I feel like that's transitioned into defense first now, and then we add the attack in as well.
Good save, good cover.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. So I mean, I I
You
am
better say
kind
you
of
better say your favorite is Wilfred Nancy, or
oh
you're off the
100%. In
pot.
this household, we stand Wilfred Nancy and we manifest Wilfred Nancy to USMNT. However, I don't believe that's something that's going to happen. My my thought is it's going to be Steve Cherundolo simply because it would just be too funny for all these guys thinking that they're going to cancel the USMNT until Gregg is fired, and then they're going to get Klopp and everything's going to be beautiful and magical and wonderful, just to turn around and get Steve Cherundolo. I think it just writes itself. But I also think it's the most realistic option because Jurgen Klopp's already said like I might go to the USA, but at the end of the day, he left saying he was burnt out. Can you imagine this guy coming into the USMNT and just handling a bunch of what I'm going to call overhyped players right now? Dude's going to come in and be like, "Oh yeah, I'll take over," and then it's just going to be like Brendan Aronson is just running around just hitting people, and Tyler Adams is hurt for the 19th time, and he's like, "What am I supposed to do with this group?" You know. Um, I liked your shout on Patrick Vieira. I thought that'd be interesting. However, I don't think he's gonna leave for that. I yeah, I'm sticking with Steve Cherundolo here just because I think, and I don't think it's necessarily the right option. Um, I think it's the option that's going to happen. For some reason, I just don't feel the USMNT getting some big name, like big blow out the sky manager. Like it just doesn't
Oh,
feel like that's something that's going to happen, you know?
mhm.
And I just saw the reason I just hesitated there is because I just saw something on an interview from Matt Crocker saying, like, what's going to be different now before the last 12 months. And he said, like, I'm in a position to go hard and go off. And like, I've been here long enough to know what we're doing and I'm ready to go. That doesn't mean you're going to get things across the line, you know? So I am not holding my breath for anything. I'm not going to expect anything. But whoever comes in, they've got my full support because at the end of the day, it doesn't do anybody any favors if I'm going to sit there and scream and cry over, you know, not having somebody there because at the end of the day, I don't wish ill upon my national team as much as, you know, I am club over country first, but I want the US to win as much as I can. So it doesn't make sense for me to go in and be like, if we don't get Jose Mourinho and Jurgen Klopp as an assistant manager duo, I'm not supporting this team and I'm canceling anything that has to do. No, it doesn't make sense. I didn't know if you wanted to add on to that, say like, oh, that's a great point. Like you're totally right.
I mean, I mean, I don't want to tell you too much to boast you because otherwise your head might explode. But but no, you are right. I mean, listen, the reality is Jurgen Klopp is not coming, and if I'm proven wrong, that's great. I would happily be proven wrong,
100%.
but it's not happening. And I think you're spot on, and I'm in agreement with you that I don't want it to happen, but I do think that the most likely option is like a Steve Cherundolo or similar archetype.
Nice. Good
I don't
work.
know who the other similar archetype would be, but maybe Pat Noonan. I don't know.
Well, it's funny because he's never mentioned in there, but I think he's a better manager than Dolo is. So
I would be inclined to agree. He's done an insane job with FCC.
In before Colorado Rapids are in for a new head coach because Chris
Oh
Armas
my
is going to the men's national team.
Stop.
I
I'll
love
actually start boycotting all the companies if Chris Armas gets in charge.
it.